Alright gang, welcome back to Tin Man Customs. We're once again starting on another custom and starting this video over here on the workbench instead of the light box because I don't have the light box set up. Little known secret, I have a very small space I work in, so the light box is in the same space as the workspace. I just set up for different things. So this week I am getting started on another figure since my previous custom was a little more complex and I had problems with him and he took forever. I'm going to start with something a little simpler that's just going to be a straight up repaint and has to do with Windcharger here. Ever since they came out with this one in the Power of the Primes line, he has become my Windcharger in my classics shelf in the collection. So that left this poor figure here to get shuffled off the shelf. So we're going to slip him out of the way. It's a really good figure, by the way. I thought they did a great job with him and the tailgate figure. That's a retool. So this was the previous version of Windcharger that they had released, and the mold is it's a good mold and a good figure, so I didn't want to get rid of the figure itself. But we're just going to do a repaint into another classic G1 character, and that will be of Sizzle, who was one of the Sparkabots. And this one is a figure, this one's one that I picked up at BotCon several years ago. He was just a couple bucks. Was not in phenomenal shape, but I didn't have him, so he fills that slot on my G1 shelf. His little sparking feature doesn't work anymore, and he is supposed to have a chrome engine block sticking up out of his hood, but that was missing as well. So I had added the little Autobot symbols that were missing. Added some repro labels there. So I am going to turn this figure into this character here, and as you can see, this is the hood, the section of the hood when he is in vehicle mode. And I have these two little chrome engine blocks. It came in a set of accessories and whatnot that my friend over at Destiny Toys sent me from one of the flea markets she went to. But I've already shaved down some of the excess plastic on the bottom of this, so it should fit in on the hood of this car right there. I'm going to use some Fix-It Sculpt to attach it. I may shave down a little bit of this, and that'll fit in there nicely, and then when he's in robot mode you shouldn't see much of that at all. So that would be the only mod that I'm going to do to this figure, and then the rest of it is going to be a straight up repaint. And I've already got the paint. I've got black and orange left over from some other figures that I've done, so this one's just a straight up easy figure to do out of pieces and parts and paint that I already had. So I am going to get this guy taken apart as much as I can. I'm looking through this thing. He's got a lot of pins and no screws, which is always kind of disappointing. I like being able to just easily take these things apart. He's also got some of these stinking large head pins and nowhere to push them through on the other side, so I'm not sure if I'm going to take that apart yet or just tape things off to paint them. So I'm going to go ahead and start trying to get this guy taken apart, and we'll see how this goes. Okay, so I'm going to try and include a little more video about how I go about taking these guys apart, or my thought process of what I'm going to do once I get them apart. and what needs to be taken off, that sort of thing. And I've been asked in some of the comments that I would show how I actually take these apart. And I may do a video that's just about dismantling these guys. But as you can see here, I've already started taking apart the easy stuff here where it's just ball joints. Those are easy to pop off. And all the red on this guy is just going to get spray painted black. All of this gray in here is going to go orange to match this guy. I mean, he's pretty much just orange all the way down. We're going to break that up a bit on this figure over here. And as you can see, I want the car to be mostly black. So all this red here is going to be black. But in order to work in some of this orange in his robot mode, I'm going to take these spots here that are black now, and I'm going to paint those orange. And I'm probably going to do an orange bumper, orange grille, and the headlights probably a light orange or yellowish orange, just to bring in as much of that orange color as possible. And I paint his head orange with a little bit of that, oh, that's kind of a light bluish purple in there. I think I've got a paint that's already that color, so that should be easy. The tires, they're gonna get, they'll get taped off. There's no sense in adding extra paint to that since they're already black. We'll get that all painted off, or taped off. Now, this section here, this looks like it's going to be a pain to take apart because there's one of those thick pins, and this panel, this whole panel in the car actually slides back and forth for vehicle and robot mode. So I'm going to have to try and take this apart in order to get all that red painted black underneath there. I'm not sure how successful that is, and I probably will not videotape dismantling this because it's going to be a lot of trial and error. That's the problem with doing some of these figures. Now, the pins at, let's see, the pins here at his knees, those are just some of the standard little pins that have the knurled end on one side. And for taking those apart, I use a, let me get the rest of them here. I use nail punches to get in and out. This one is spring loaded, so the more you push on, it ends up popping. It helps hammer the pin out, which is really handy. I just wish I could find these in that size, because this is more in line with with the size of the pins. So a lot of times I will get these started with the hammer, with the spring loaded. Now you got to be careful. As you can see, this plastic's really thin here. When this one starts hammering in there, it's going to make the hole a little bigger. So you don't want to go too far in because you're going to crack this plastic here. So that's another problem that I usually run into with these figures. But if I can get it started, then I can kind of go in with the smaller nail punch here, which already fits in there. I have a little ball peen hammer that I'll use, but I've got to brace it, usually brace it with one of those. I'll have his leg taken off of here when I go to start that, but I will brace it on top of this so I'm not going into my foam core topper here, because this is just a foam core on top of my table. If I mess up the table, it's our dining room table, I'm in trouble. So that being said, that's where that's at. It appears that there's a screw back in there, which I'll be able to take all of this gray off, which is fantastic, because then I can just spray paint this all orange I won't have to remove his head since it's going to be orange. And as you can see here, he doesn't have a screw in the back of his head like most of the figures. It isn't one of those big flat-headed pins. These things are next to impossible to pull out without tearing up your figure. So I hate coming across those. And the way I've taken those out in the past, and you can see it in some of my other videos, is using a soldering iron, and you just put the tip of the soldering iron on that pin, heat it up for a good, depending the thickness of the plastic, you heat it up good 10 to 20 seconds, and then you can pry the thing apart. And let's see, again, back to this little panel here that slides back and forth. This is one, once I get this taken apart, and I hope I can get it taken apart, as again, it's a, let's get that in the light, it's a flat-headed pin. So I'm not sure yet how I'm going to get that apart. I'm probably going to have to heat it up and then put a flathead screwdriver in there and give it a twist to pop that apart. And hopefully not destroy the whole thing. But once I get it apart, I'll need to sand the backside of that black panel since I'm going to be adding black paint to this. So I'll need to compensate for the thickness, the difference in thickness there, so you don't end up scratching all the black paint off of that panel every time you slide it over. That's why a lot of times when I transform figures, once I've got them painted, I do it really slowly, is because I'm trying not to scuff up all the paint that I just put on them. So that's what I'm going with on this guy. So we're going to try and get as much orange in his robot mode, even though he shows a lot of the vehicle panels when he's in robot mode. But I think we can get it to work right. There's a lot of gray exposed there that will be able to get turned to orange. So I'm going to continue getting that guy taken apart, and we'll be back once I get him taken apart, and probably after he's spray painted his base colors. Alright guys, so we've got all the base paint on him, and now let's get him put back together and do some detail paint. Okay gang, and here we are looking at his final colors. I'm actually pretty pleased with the way he turned out, and I don't have another regular version of the Windcharger to show a comparison on what we started with, but I do have our original Sizzle figure here. My G1 figure is a little, still, like I had said at the beginning, he's a little beat up. But overall, I'm liking how the color scheme ended up working here. Having the extra details painted into, the orange details painted into the vehicle mode really pulls out the complete orange robot body. And this Windcharger figure had little fold out blasters. He'd spin his hand around, and he had little rifles that would transform, flip out. And I painted these silver to go along with these silver piping that was on his arms in the original toy. So the arms on this have that little bit of silver detail in there as well. Didn't have to do any resculpt work on the head. I just went ahead with the Windcharger sculpt that was there and painted the face up to match. I probably could have put that tall crest in the center of the helmet, but it's a very tight fit in here anyway when you fold the hood open, so left that as is. And the only real addition I did was add this giant engine that will be on the hood of the car in vehicle mode. Oops. the original toy here. You can hear all those old creaks. Like I had said again at the beginning, there should have been an engine block there sticking out. So that's why I added the one to the back of his head there. We'll go ahead and get him transformed up. One more thing before I transform him. These panels here, the whole back tail of the vehicle, are supposed to slide back and forth into the leg cavity here to make the legs a little more narrow in robot mode. Now, they'll still slide, but it is a tight fit in there under the orange paneling. You can see there's a little bit of wiggle room there, but I haven't really slid them in and out because I am fairly certain we'll get a little bit of scuffing in here, and leaving them out like that doesn't really bug me for his robot mode. So I am going to leave those probably folded out just to make sure I don't scuff that black paint. So that said, I'm going to go ahead and get this guy transformed up. In his vehicle mode with the giant engine sticking out of there. So you could see in that this one actually rolls better than the last figure I did. As you can see in that video, one of the leg panels popped off during the transformation, and that I should be able to fix. I'll go in and add a screw in the back of the leg. One of the legs already had that screw because the pinhole was damaged as I was dismantling it. So I'll just have to fix his other one. But he goes all together here. And you can really see the orange details in the car here that I added. I don't think it detracts from it being a black car, but it allows for the orange to be in the robot mode. So we'll bring in the original guy here. And you can see he was mainly just a black, flat black, with a little bit of orange on his tail, just where the feet were. He also had a hole where he would shoot sparks. Doesn't shoot sparks anymore, and I did not even consider adding a spark shooter or something on this guy. There he is, and I gotta say, I'm pretty pleased with the way he turned out in vehicle mode. A little bit of paint line issues there, but I don't know how much that shows up on the camera. But pretty pleased with this one, and he transforms fairly well. Nothing really rubs too bad here, like where he tabs together. That's all pretty solid. And I'm going to go ahead and pop him back into robot mode, and we'll do our final thought. All right, so this guy, I think, turned out fairly well. He was a fun figure to work with and to repaint here. I think the black really turned out nice on him for sure. That really turned out pretty good. And for a Rust-Oleum black instead of the typical Tamiya brand that I use. And if you're interested in any the paints that I've used, I've got links down below as always. There's also links to other videos of mine. And if this is your first time to the channel, be sure to hit like and subscribe, and share the videos if you want. You can follow me on Instagram at tinman_customs, and I'm going to go ahead and get back to work on whatever my next custom's going to be. Thanks a lot, as always, for stopping by.